everyone. I know it's been a while since I've been on, but I'm happy to be back on. And I'm very grateful for Reverend Gatewood, who has been very supportive and encouraging. He came on Sunday talking about Jesus loves justice. And today I'm back with the president of the Gary, Indiana Schools Advisory Board, President Robert Buggs. So, Mr. Buggs is going to give us an update on what's going on with the school system in Gary, Indiana. Mr. Buggs?
Yes.
So, how are things with the school system? Go ahead and let us know.
Well, I intend to let you know there's some good and there's some bad. I guess you would call it, but well, it is bad. Uh, some of the things that I want to talk to you all about tonight, it has to do with the way the employees are being treated, and I'm just going to start off with that issue first. I got a phone call that one of the beloved coaches, track coach at Westside High School, was being terminated. So I wanted to find out for myself if that actually was factual. So I called the coach, and she told me, in fact, that she had been called in at the spur of the moment and was told that her services was no longer needed. Now, she has never been written up for anything, any kind of disciplinary actions whatsoever. One of the reasons allegedly were that she didn't get any scholarships for the track team. Now, unless she was on planet Mars or under the sea someplace, everybody knew that 2020 was COVID. There was nobody running track. There was no sports at all. So to accuse her of not providing any scholarships to athletes is ridiculous. But moving right along, as advisory of the school board president, we have been systematically disrespected. Normally, in a situation like this, if an employee was terminated for no cause, uh, we would intervene. The school board would intervene. That's the superintendent. What's going on? In this case, Dr. Paige McNulty has sole say so over the school district. Now, since that time, I've been accused of being not cooperative, which is untrue. I'll try to be very collaborative because it's not an adversarial situation. At least I don't think it should be. But they try to make it be so. And the reason I'm saying that is because this lady is Doctor. Her name is Veronica. We call her Coach Tiny. This young lady almost went to the Olympics some years ago. I think she's beat out by 1 or 2 points. That's how great she is. She's been doing an excellent job. All of the students, I will repeat, at Westside respects her. Now, to get rid of her for no cause, and I called trying to be amicable with the permission of Coach Tiny to talk to Dr. McNulty to see if she would have a meeting with the two of us with Coach Tiny's permission. And she said, no, it's a personnel issue. Well, I know it's a personnel issue. I'm not dumb. You know, she's getting rid of a personnel unjustly, and I'm trying to find out what it is. I'm from down south, and we have an old saying that no matter how thin the pancake, it's always two sides. But Dr. Paige McNulty never wants us to get that other side. She wants to dictate the way things are going to be, her way or no way. Now, my little so-called mini investigation thus far has led me to believe that the person that was instrumental in this, one of them was terminated uh, for child molesting. I guess somebody, I don't know the facts, but this is what I was told. I'm not going off of hearsay. He was terminated. I do know that. Allegedly child molesting the students. He had some kind of animosity toward uh, Coach Tiny, and he called an individual and asked her to take the position. This other guy, he's the assistant coach. His name is Henry, and he allegedly also called her replacement and told him, we want you to take this job. Now, normally a job like that would be put out so other people in Gary, Indiana could apply for it. The person that they wanted to have the job did not apply. She was called and told she had a job and had a Zoom interview. Now, what did Coach Tiny do? We don't know. Dr. Page refused to talk to me, so I had asked Coach Tiny to see if she could get a meeting with Dr. Page. She has a right to appeal any kind of decision, especially that's going to affect her teaching life as well as her coaching life. She's been a coach for many, many years. As a matter of fact, recently received an award for it, and will be going in Indiana Hall of Fame. So these are the kind of things that we have a problem with. Now, ironically, there was an incident concerning another coach. Her name is Butler. That there was a student that she had running, and the student's nose started bleeding. She went to the bathroom with permission of Coach Butler, came back with some toilet tissue in her nose, and Coach Butler told her to resume running. Well, she did, being obedient, she resumed running. And when she felt herself feeling dizzy, she tried to make it back to the bathroom. Well, she didn't make it. She collapsed in the hallway, and there she lay, bleeding, going in and out of consciousness for 45 minutes. Nobody called any medical personnel. There was an assistant coach there. There was other personnel watching her on the floor. As a matter of fact, when the mom got there, the assistant coach had to literally pick her up because the child was just almost lifeless, just limp, unconscious. Now that Coach Butler, is still there over the objection of the advisory board and the parent. Now this is what's going on and with our school district. Now, a lot of people don't want me to say it, but I'm going to say it. This is the way I see it. When I say a black or white issue, I don't mean to say it in a racist attitude. I'm speaking factual. The decisions that's being made by a city that is primarily black and our school students, which are primarily black, are being made by white people that do not live in this city, not even close to the city. And the people that was elected to look out for the best interests of those students and the parents have absolutely no say-so. So when I question somebody, that's when I've been labeled as a troublemaker, a racist, because I'm playing a race card. No, I'm playing a reality card. There are decisions being made which are wrong by white people that don't live in the city of Gary, and it's impacting black students and impacting the black stakeholders and parents because they have no say-so in the education of their children. This is wrong. But a lot of parents go along with it. I try to tell them, and no one says anything about it, but these are your children, and you need to speak up. MGT, since they've been here, I'm going to read you some stats about the grades. I guess you all have heard the old axiom, if it's not broken, then there's no need to fix it, or something to that, something similar to that. Well, when MGT came in, I'm just going to give you a few examples of where some of our schools, where the grading was. I'm going to start with Beverage School. In 2016, and this is the IRE scores that I'm giving. The IRE scores in 2016 for Beverage School was 79%. In 2019, that's when MGT taken over, it went down to 26%, and 2021, 21%. Banneker School, in 2016, the IRE scores were passing at the rate of 100%. In 2019, that went down to 53%, and 2021 down to 41%. Those are the percentages that passed. What happened to the other students that didn't pass? Glen Park Academy. In 2016, the IRE passing scores was 72% of the students passed. 2019, that dropped to 41%. that passed. In 2021, it rose back up to 47%, but that's a long way from 72% in 2016. Williams School in 2016 had a pass rate of 90%. 2019, it dropped to 43% pass rate, and 2021, 35% pass rate. Now, that's just a few of the scores that I've given you. And mind you that the advisory board notified DUAB based on the scores of MGT and their performance not to renew their contract, because since under their tenure, academics, expulsions, enrollment, everything was negative. Now they say today that they have 4,445 students. I don't believe that. The reason being, we had a section of Gary called Dory Miller. Well, the Gary Housing Authority demolished Dory Miller, and so all of those parents that lived there and in Concord, not Concord, Delaney projects, were displaced. A lot of them left the district. So how are you going to have 4,445 students? Now, Dr. McNulty said they got a new track at Westside, and that will cause student enrollment to increase. Well, the track is installed. Where are the students coming from? And ask yourself, why would a student leave a school that's not leaking to come to one that the roof is still leaking inside of the school, the cafeteria, the library, the administration office, and the hallways? What student in their right mind will leave a perfectly new school and come back with the grades I just gave you and the graduation rates have plummeted? What is the motivation to come back? For what? So I come to you today because at the school board meeting, we meet every 3 months. And I felt this was important that I would come to you to let the citizens of Gary know exactly what is going on with your system. You all should speak out. You all should call in and ask Dr. McNulty when she's on the radio twice a month about these scores. Now, there was 2 years that was missing. That was 2017 and 2018. MGT came here, took full control July 1st, 2017. And ever since that, about a year after they got here, everything plummeted. Now, they said that they came here to upright the financial ship. Allegedly, we were in debt. The student loan debt, not student loan, but the loan was $105 million. Now, the current school board, which I was a part of, that was our first year, had negotiated with some attorneys to eliminate the IRS bill of $8.5 million. And that was going to be done in approximately 2 weeks. I have the paperwork to show that they was going to get that done. As a matter of fact, as a show of good faith, they had did some investigation. They had got $144,000 forgave, but they never mentioned that on our part. That was a part of the loan that was forgiven. Now, if you subtract that $8.5 million from $104 million, you see about what you got. Now, today, almost 4 years later, it's at about $94 million, according to the information I got off the internet. Now, they say it's at $77 million, but they won't provide paperwork showing that. Then comes the almighty deficit. It was allegedly reduced from $22 million down to $6 million. Now, this is what Eric Parrish, who is the financial consultant for MGT. In other words, he calls all the shots. The advisory board asked, we was the school board at that time, board of trustees, requested a copy of the document showing where they had actually decreased it from 22 million to 6 million. They refused to provide that. Then we had a CFO come on board, a new one, and excuse me, she said at the present time in August of last year that the deficit was at $9 million. 9 million. So if it was 6 million in January, now it's 9 million in August. Somebody is not being truthful. Now in December of 2020, it allegedly went down to $2 million. Now in between August and December, we got in some money from COVID. We got in some money from other sources, from House Bill 1065, and all of a sudden, wow, boom, the deficit is down. Now, I also want you all to know that in 3 years, we've had 3 emergency managers, 3 chief academic officers, 3 chief financial officers, and approximately 4 high school principals in 3 years, almost 4 years. There's no continuity. So why? If you're changing emergency managers, now Dr. Paige McNulty say that it's no longer an emergency. Well, if it's no longer an emergency, according to 567, that is the only authorizing law as to why they're here as an emergency manager. That authorizes an emergency manager. So if it's no longer an emergency, then why are they still here? Then came the referendum. I want to give you a little update on that. As you know, I went on the radio and I tried to tell you all that the referendum was not based on your age. It's based on the monetary amount of property that you own. In other words, if you own $500,000 worth of real estate, then you're going to pay taxes on it. I don't care if you're 165. Now, they have some homestead exemptions, but say you own other properties or rental properties, you can't get homestead exemptions on those. But again, when you want to pull the wool over a community's eyes that is primarily black, the white people will go to the black preachers. And that's what they did in this instance. They recruited Reverend Dwight Gardner, I think the other one was Corey Jackson, Chester Jones, Dr. Vernon Smith, and Chuck Hughes to advocate for the referendum. They told them that you would only be paying 16 cents a day. Then Reverend Gardner thought, oh, that's too low. I think it should be more. So his praise in the park, which was supposed to be in a prayer and not a rally for a referendum, he used the Baptist ministers in the background as if they was all in agreement with that, and some of them told me they were not. They didn't go to Faber Park to talk about a referendum. They were sort of bamboozled. But anyway, Reverend Gardner suggested that it be raised 4 cents, from 46 cents to 50 cents. Well, then when Eric Parrish found out that, within 2 days, they raised it from 46 cents to 56 cents. So Reverend Gardner cost everybody some extra tax money because they went up immediately and made that a part of the official referendum to be assessed 56 cents for every $100 of assessed evaluation of your property. That's what he did. They sold you out. They didn't tell you the truth. Now, since that time, a lot of people have been calling the radio and contacting me saying they've been bamboozled. Well, no, you wasn't bamboozled because I gave you what the formula was. They lied to you. They told them that if you vote for the referendum, you will get local control back. Well, they didn't give it. They didn't take it away, so nor can they give it. Local control will only be done by a statewide vote, passing another law to supersede Senate Bill 567 and House Bill 1315. Other than that, won't be any local control. As it stands right now, currently, the law that's on the books in 1315 and 567 says that after MGT leaves, they are still here, Then DUAB will be making decisions for the district, which I added up be approximately 6 years. Now that's on the law books right now. And I challenge everybody that was going around lying to the folks in my local controllers coming back, and if you get this referendum. So now they stuck for the next 8 years, except I filed a complaint with the Lake County Election Board, which is going to be heard finally on July the 20th at 10 o'clock in Crown Point. And my reason of my complaint was that Dr. McNulty is not an elected legislative body. The law says you cannot be an appointed body. You must be elected by the people whom you're going to recommend to be taxed. And that makes common sense. But Dr. McNulty lives in Valparaiso, Indiana. Dr. McNulty was not elected by anybody. She was appointed, hired by MGT. So for her to come to a city of approximately 70,000 people, of whom most of them are black, and to put a tax on them with the guise of the first $1 million go to teachers for their raises, then some other things thrown in there. But at the very bottom, in the last line in the referendum, it said to balance the budget, aka deficit. Now, anybody with a half a brain will know that a referendum is never ever used to balance a budget or a deficit. It can be used for operational day-to-day operations, period. But since nobody in Gary speaks up, they think they can make any decision unchallenged by anybody at any time. Now, all of these things that I'm telling you, I expressed to the chairman of the DUAB board, attorney Justin McAdams. And to show you that they're all in cahoots with this, guess what he said? Dr. Page is doing an excellent job. I said, but her child almost bled to death in the hallway. She's doing a good job. She got a big corporation to run. Had that been a white child and black people standing around watching her bleed, going in and out of consciousness, they would own that city and the district and the city of Gary. But by being a black child, all of those people that are associated with that are still working as if nothing happened. The security supervisor security supervisor failed to make an incident report. Absolutely refused. The coach butler at no time came out and checked on the student. The athletic director, Robert Lee, has yet to address the situation, and he knows about it. So you see, these are the things that is happening in your school district, and I think that you all should know about it. It is wrong, but it's up to you to speak about your children. If your children are not getting an education, and this is proven, with the reading scores I just gave you, they have documentaries and statistics that state if a child cannot read by the 3rd or 4th grade or read at that level and that age bracket, he's more than likely not going to finish high school. He's going to drop out of high school. He's more than likely going to end up on welfare. He's more than likely, imminently, going to end up in the criminal justice system, period. They build the jails, we fill them. Now, this is the thing going around with the inner city with this emergency manager takeover. It's nothing but a game. But when I try to tell my fellow citizens, they think that I'm being mean-spirited, that I should go somewhere and sit down and shut up and be quiet. But I'm not going to do that. And I used the number of, I was reelected by 15,254 citizens in Gary. So somebody has some faith in me to do something. So for me to sit on a knob or on a log like a knot and be quiet while the students are not being educated, and these people are paying them thousands and millions of dollars to do this to our students is unacceptable, period. Now, we can only meet every 3 months. And ironically, the last time we had a school board meeting, there was nobody there to record it. I think that was something a little bit fishy about that, but be that as it may, they were supposed to send it to the city of Gary so that it would be recorded so the citizens of Gary could see what went on at the school board meeting. That, to my knowledge, has not happened. So these are just a few things that I want to let you all know about. You just think about it. 3 years, 3 emergency managers, 3 chief financial officers, 3 academic officers. Now, if you get rid of somebody, that means they're incompetent, right? So that means every year there was somebody that was incompetent. So if they was incompetent, then that means they wasn't successful in educating our students, right? Why would you get rid of a high school principal if the graduation rate is way up there 90%? If you've been in charge for the last 4 years, then it's totally on you. You've been making sole decisions about everything, and you can't just keep getting rid of blaming it on the principal, get another emergency manager. Gary's become like a cash cow. And this is my personal opinion. It's just like our students are seen as little dollar bills, not as individuals, living, breathing human beings, dollar bills. And the people in Gary can't see that. You need to wake up to see what's happening with your students. You need to challenge these folks. Here's somebody you let an all-black entourage go out in Sherrville or St. John or someplace, take over that school district, and tell the parents and the people that's elected on the school board, you have nothing to say about this. I'm going to make sole decisions about your children, and I'm going to be blessed by the Distress Unit Appeals Board, also known as DUAB, Distress Unit Appeals Board. Now, according to Dr. McNulty, we are no longer distressed. So we're no longer distressed according to the law, then MGT is supposed to leave because we're no longer distressed political subdivision, which requires by law an emergency manager, not a manager. Because if there's no longer an emergency, then why are you still here? Now, I asked some questions at the last board meeting of Dr. McNulty, and she told me she was going to have this information for me within 2 weeks. So the day I asked her about it, they wanted to put it off on the attorney. Attorney Tobin had nothing to do with this academic, the question I asked her. But these are the kind of diversionary tactics that they use. And it's wrong. Wrong, wrong, wrong. Then here's another thing that I want you all to know about. There was a young lady named, her name is LaDonna Petty, Petty. She approached me not as a school board president or not as the advisory board, but since I'm active in the community in the NAACP, that she's going to put on an event celebrating the Jacksons for 3 days in August. 3 days. She's done this before. It's not the first time. She requested to use Roosevelt football field and Roosevelt parking lot. So we have adequate parking and sort of performers, which is coming from all over the United States to perform. And I was told, well, she was told after she'd notified all those people about the event in California and people from overseas coming over, that Dr. McNulty said, no, you can't do it. So then I started trying to find out why. You tell somebody that it's okay. So Miss Irma Patton told me that Dr. McNulty said they did a walkthrough of the Roosevelt football field facility, and it was found to be unsafe. Therefore, it could not be used. So I said, well, what about the parking lot? She didn't ask about the parking lot. Well, I got a copy of the application. It says football field and parking lot. What I also have is a copy of the buildings and grounds supervisor who okayed it. He didn't say that you couldn't use the football field. The only thing he said, and I have it documented, was that, and he sent this recommendation to Dr. McNulty, by the way, that the person putting on the event would have to get their own generators for electricity and provide porta potties, which they were going to do anyway. So then when I talked to Dr. McNulty, she said that she had offered her a vacant parking lot at Westside School. And I said, that's a long ways from the Jackson's house. The purpose of this is to celebrate the Jacksons because there are going to be people and tourists coming from all over for the 3-day event. By the way, part of the money that's going to be raised from that event was to go to the West Side School to buy them some band uniforms and band equipment. So I want you all to know that that's where some of the money was going. This is a nonprofit organization just to make the awareness of the Jackson 5 through their music and through performance of 3-day events where everybody, family can come out and have fun. And they are trying to block it. Now, she had Miss Kim Bradley to call Miss Petty, and Miss Petty put me on as a 3-way. So I was trying to explain to Miss Bradley that I got 3 different versions of first you can, then you can't. You can't use the football field, but you can use the parking lot. And then Miss Bradley accused me of harassing her because of the multiple phone calls. Number one, I didn't call her. Number two, I was just trying to bring up to speed as to what had been told to me by Miss Irma Patton and Dr. Paige McNulty. So you see, when this word come in, harassment, already they trying to build some kind of little false narrative. When they trying to block something. Then she told me, well, we're not gonna be strong-armed. If we want to close down our school, we can close them down. Yep, sure can. Your schools in the city of Gary, where somebody wants to have an event recognizing a citizen and have a family affair, and you want to close it down based on your school. Well, Miss Bradley, it is not your school. It's not Dr. McNulty's school. It's the city of Gary school. It belongs to the citizens of Gary, not you. So I was offended by that word that I was harassing her because it's almost like I'm supposed to be the slave Negro that can't ask the white folks or the black folks no questions whatsoever. And I was just merely relaying what each entity had told me. But then they lied. I'm not going to say they made a false statement. They lied. Miss Patton told me that she was passing on what Dr. Paige McNulty told her. And that was, after they walked through, it was determined that the football field at Roosevelt was unusable. Yet the building and ground supervisor approved it and sent it to Dr. McNulty. Now she got that. So here's why you twist things around. Now, just about everybody that she has hired has come from East Chicago, where she was terminated from. And I'm using the word terminated because that's what the school board over there said, that she was terminated. She did not resign. She was terminated. But I wasn't going to make an issue out of that. But when people start blatantly lying, then that pattern becomes a reality, because what they told me and what I'm seeing is play for play. And that is wrong. So people, Gary, we need to wake up. This is just a little gist of the things that I'm trying to bring you up to speed on about what's going on in the school district. But it's not only Dr. McNulty, because she's only doing what she's allowed to do by Eric Parrish, MGT, and the Distress Unit Appeals Board. Now, just to give you a little comparison, When Dr. Pruitt was the superintendent, she had to go to before the Stress Unit Appeals Board, aka DUAB, twice a month just to get just enough money to cover payroll. Twice a month. Now, when I told Dr. Hinckley, which was the first emergency manager, about that, she cut me off. I couldn't finish the sentence. She said, I don't beg for nothing. They give it to me. And they've been given ever since without question. They gave a lady over the special population department $1.2 million. So one of the DUAB members said, well, who's going to oversee this money? And the chairman said, they are. We leave that up to them. Now here, on one hand, Dr. Pruitt got to go down and get begged for twice a month just to pay the staff, nothing extra. In the meantime, by the way, we was told to get rid of consultants, counselors, school nurses, pipe fitters, close schools. All of these decisions was made by DUAB. The current school board hasn't made one decision on anything, period, nothing, nada. But they expect us grown men that was elected by the citizens of Gary and woman. We have Miss McCain, the vice president, to just sit by and aisle and do nothing because they say, well, you're on the advisory board. Well, we're trying to advise you. We can by law we can make recommendations. So we put recommendations in writing. And they didn't even acknowledge them during their distress, the appeals board meeting. Didn't acknowledge anything that we sent to them. On more than one occasion, I might add. But I am livid by the way that they are treating the students and now the staff. Coach Tiny is beloved by all of the students. She should have been the athletic director because they paid him all that money. I don't know what he's doing. He was doing COVID. Everything was closed with $80,000 for what? Nobody was even going into schools. I haven't seen one football game yet. And now he has an assistant. For what? So you all can, sort of, I don't mean to be mean-spirited, but you can take it the way that you want to. I just want to let you know that this is reality. White people are making decisions about black children in the school district. They are failing them academically. They are failing them politically because they're lying to their parents. They're not providing to them equal facilities like the other school districts. We should have a brand new school. We shouldn't spend millions and millions of dollars patching the roof on Roosevelt, on West Side, and it's still leaking. You keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. That's a little cray-cray to me. But they're doing it. Now, I don't call anybody a lie, but there's no way to put it sometimes when somebody's telling a blatant lie. And then you got other people skinning and grinning and eating it up, and you tell them, well, that's wrong. They're lying to you. They're lying to the citizen. They're lying. No, she's doing a good job. It's almost as if they were sending him to make sure this district failed. I ask questions because the citizens of Gary that elected me come up to me and ask questions. And I should be able to give them a prudent answer when they ask the question, not 2 weeks later. That's what they elected me for. But when you got somebody intentionally trying to keep information away from you, what do you say about that? We are left out of everything. Let me give you a couple of examples. We had a graduation at Westside School outside. They did not even acknowledge the mayor of Gary who was sitting on the podium. His city, they did not acknowledge him at all. They didn't want me to acknowledge the advisory board, but I did. But if you look at the tape at the graduation, and you see when I was reading, acknowledging the advisory board, the expression on Dr. McNaughton's face, it says it all right there. 20 minutes before the graduation, they gave me a piece of paper and told me to read this like I'm sounding a little boy or something. Oh, you read this. Yes, ma'am. Guys, I'm going to read it for you. I'm from Jackson, Mississippi, Madison, Mississippi. And I was nominated to Freedom Riders in Jackson and went through a lot of racial upheaval and unrest and everything else. And I say that to say this. I am a fighter for freedom. I cannot, will not stand by quietly like a house Negro while our children are not being educated. Can't do that. The people didn't elect me to do that. But the people that's in charge have gotten so bold now that they exclude us from everything. They had, given a couple of examples, they had a football camp. Some professional football players came out the West Side. Did we know about it? No. Never told us about it, not one word. They dedicated the new track they got out there. I attended. Were we recognized at the dedication? No. Dr. McNaughton went on the radio. She named everybody from a piece of rock on the first track at West Side. But did she mention anybody on the advisory board? No. This is by design, knowingly and intentionally. A good friend of mine and mentor, Sergeant Billy Moore, retired from West Side School, beloved by all of the advisory board members. The day he retired, did we know about it? I see it on Facebook. This is the kind of stuff that's going on. This is the kind of stuff that you all need to know about. And when she comes on the radio, WLTH, nobody calls in to ask her any tough questions. Everything is so excited about this, excited about that, excited about this, and our children are failing. You should be very, very upset when you hear anybody, black or white, saying they're excited. When I just read y'all a few the stats about our most vulnerable children can't read. If you can't read now, why are you going into the next grade? You can't read. How are you going to get anything? So, Ms. Barrett, that's a little bit of my update in case you had some questions or something for me.
Well, I don't have any. You can't hear me?
You don't have any questions? Yeah, I'm listening if you had any questions or clarifications.
I have a comment.
Okay, go ahead.
I think that a lot of people noticed that our mayor was there at the ceremony for the graduation, and he was not acknowledged.
Yeah, I mentioned that, yeah.
We noticed that.
Sure.
And you know, that did not feel very good to have our mayor there.
And he was sitting there on the dais, and nobody acknowledged him. No. And
so to me, you know, when we think about what's going on in America with Mitch McConnell and the GOP, how they are presently trying to make sure that we don't have voting rights as an entire people across this nation.
Absolutely.
If you haven't watched the news, the Republican GOP, the entire body, they are working to reverse the voting rights of African Americans, period.
Yeah.
It's proven with their strategies that they're targeting African Americans. And to take away your voting rights is to take away your voice and basically to take away your human rights and leave you susceptible to abuses like they obviously did to us before we had voting rights. Not that they've, done the greatest job since we've had the right to vote, but to think that these people, these types of people, these white supremacists who have a nationwide plan to disenfranchise us in any capacity that they can. We can't understand how wicked they are. Now, devoicing us, when they took away our advisory board, school board, they basically made the entire city of Gary voiceless because we don't have a vote. Our vote does not matter when it comes to the people who we want to represent us, like yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You should have our voices standing behind you,
Right.
Representing us on issues, and they should act on what you say. But because they took away our right to vote for our advisory board members and appointed one person, we need to understand that is some racist stuff. It's like we live on a plantation and we got the all white voting DUAB board. Everyone that has the ability to vote for what goes on in Gary schools, they're all white and none of them live in Gary. So how is it that a city 98%, 78%, something like that, Black, doesn't have one person that has a voting capacity that's Black? Not one. And none of them live in Gary.
But you know why? Because you only got 3 or 4 people out of 78,000 in Gary that's speaking out against it. You got Dr. Smith. He goes along with it. I mean, look what how they lied about the referendum. They told the people to lie. You ain't gonna be paying 15 cents a day, 20 cents a day. But back to the voting thing, did you know that the Democrats, they walked out tonight and went to, so they wouldn't have a quorum. So they walked out again.
In Texas?
Also, I guess you heard about the case where the guy, he was on parole, he voted, got 5 years in prison, sent to prison, back to prison.
Yeah.
There was a 72-year-old lady that was taking a computer class. Because she didn't answer her telephone, she was sent back to prison.
Yeah.
Then there was another lady. So they're making examples out of these, But
what we need to really see is that they are testing the system to see just how far they can go with violating African Americans on all levels.
Well, they got judges on all levels.
I don't believe till this day that we are human or worthy to be on the same level as them. So
and that's why I can't put all of these some of these racist judges on the federal bench. This is all a coordinated.
It's a nationwide, worldwide.
That we can't vote.
White supremacist. And Gary to me was a testing ground. They made sure no parent could have a say what's right or what's wrong. You don't get due process through the school system here.
No.
It is the worst violations of human rights for an entire city.
That's when they
And
get that point across to
and we
the
don't know that they have, and we have no clue how much they have taken from us as Americans in this city. I hope that leadership starts to see that we need to find a way to use our voices collectively to demand that we have an advisory board, a school board, so that parents can have opportunities to due process. Children can have opportunities to due process. And we don't have school teachers and coaches being fired who are very well respected by our children, very loved by our children. They are disrupting our culture.
yes, Dr. Fisher. You remember Coach Fisher?
Yeah, they are
That was
causing trauma.
some of his
And
students. Some of his students came from out of town when they heard about it. They came from other states to the school board meeting to speak in his behalf, because he was more than a coach; he was a mentor. And they replaced him with this lady that let that child lay out there bleeding almost to death. That's what they replaced her with, and she's
Yeah.
still there.
Yeah, how are you going to have a person there that allowed a child to bleed out in the floor, a Black child, not call the ambulance, not administer first aid, nothing? Went on playing basketball with the child over on the floor, bleeding out,
Yeah,
unconscious.
and she knew about it.
So they allow our children to be violated by those who are okay with neglecting our own.
Yes,
And we know that we can neglect our own. That's nothing new. But for a school system to know and be well informed that teachers are neglecting and abusing their powers, not giving first aid to a child that could die, and they are still on the payroll, that is a white supremacist way of okaying Uncle Tom beating Black bodies.
no, it wasn't Uncle Tom. Now it was Sambo. When Uncle Tom,
Sambo, whatever
they
you
need
want to call
get that
it.
straight. Uncle Tom was
I
a
don't know.
good guy, but they trying to make us have this narrative to down Uncle Tom. You know, these other folks, but his name was actually Sambo. That's not just something somebody made up. He actually was named Sambo. So there's a lot of Sambo going around.
You know, we can't be okay with them not give report cards. So we can't even get report cards. Parents can't get report cards. We have no idea what grades our children are getting. We don't have a clue if they deserve full scholarships or not, because they didn't give us access to report cards for 2 years.
Right. Well, I mean, this is.
How do we know if our children are really failing? What if they're not?
Well, this is by design. They don't want you to know.
Yeah.
But
Well,
when they go down to the DUAB board and they lie, oh, we're excited about this. We partner with this and partner with that. But when I gave them the stats that I just gave a few minutes ago, it didn't bother them. Always
yeah,
on
those numbers are terrible. The culture of our school system is absolutely terrible. It's at its worst. I've never seen the culture what's Dr. Paige McNulty. She has created a very disrespectful disregarding of parents and students. She's created such a vile, to me, human rights violations culture, and has trained her staff that this is acceptable and it's going to happen and ain't nothing going to happen to me. I'm going to violate this person right, that person right, and you can too, and I'm not going to do nothing to you. But if you are a very successful teacher or a very successful coach, we're going to fire you.
Yeah,
because we want to disrupt your ability to have success or lights, people that the kids can look up to.
right.
So my battery is running low, Mr. Bugs.
Okay.
We're gonna have to do this. I know I said this last time, but we're gonna, I've been a little
Well, let's do
down.
it. Let's do it once. Let's do it
Dealing with-
once. Let's do it once a week.
I know we said that. I'm going to try to get back to my once a week, and I thank you for coming on
Oh,
tonight.
thank you.
I'm gaining my energy back. I'm getting myself back together, and hopefully I'll see you Saturday.
Okay, we
With
will.
another
Yes.
update. Maybe.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Mr. Bud.
everybody.
Good night.
Good night. Good night.